Hey Brandon, how you doing tonight, man?
Soy bueno. How are you doing?
Soy bueno. I've been working on my Spanish, but I still don't know what that means, except bueno's good, right?
Bueno's good. And I saw a sign actually that said, hey, what if soy milk is just milk's way of introducing itself in Spanish?
I've never heard of that before, but it's deep. It's pretty, I don't know, it's cerebral, man.
Well, that's why I'm cerebraling here. I went to a board game day because, I nerded up and I got this new game called San Juan. And it is unabashedly an attempt to colonize Puerto Rico and including the colonists. I can't share all of it because it would probably upset some people,
Hmm.
but it's a really good European game, albeit about the Caribbean.
Well, we kind of are in the business of upsetting people with our show. Although I've learned recently that we're helping some people. We got some good feedback, and it's really invigorating to hear from people that relate to some of the topics we talk about and feel like we're helping them. That's awesome.
I know because just a show that published yesterday. Somebody texted us about how it helped them and some things they do. And I gotta say, we're like the top show in some counties or parishes in some parts of the world. So
Really? We'll have to check our metrics there. But today we have a good one for you. Even though we have some things going on, it's really warm, and I don't know how you do it in Southern California over there, man. It's like what, 74 degrees and sunny and
it's
perfect.
it's brutal at the beach
Yeah.
bonfire last night. People were huddled up. They had hoodies. Once the sun went down, the band that was playing, it was like we could barely hear them because we had so many layers on. It was difficult here.
I'm thrown back to episode one because I have a winter hat on today. It's almost summertime, but I have a winter hat on because it is cold here in Wisconsin.
We're recording this in May, and you look like you're ready for the Arctic.
I am ready for the Arctic, but today we have a good one. We have one of our friends and special guest to the show, Ms. Jane Leahy. Jane, hello. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Great to be here.
And we were talking earlier that I talked about how I got to know Jane a little more over the last couple of years, and Brandon, you have an interesting story as well. How you met Jane, or I should say, Jane. Do you want to share your story of how you met Brandon?
Sure, I can share that. It was at the HDI Officer Summit 3 years ago. I was a brand new officer and made the trip out to the Leadership Summit that weekend. And I was accompanied by a direct report of mine who I'd sent the year before as an officer. And she was all pumped. She had met Brandon as part of her first year experience. And so when we got there, she knew who he was right away, introduced me, and the fun began. There was not one single serious conversation or sentence in that initial conversation, but it became about his shorts. That's all I remember. It's Brandon in his shorts, because I think it was still chilly in June in Colorado Springs at that time, and in comes Brandon with the shorts on. So later on, saw him with jeans on, couldn't figure out who that was. So when he's in jeans, he became Brandon. When he's in shorts, he's Brandon.
I'm actually wearing those same shorts now. A good pair of shorts will last forever. So, as a native Floridian, now living in California, Jane, I change into shorts every day when I come home. It's change out of work clothes, shorts, and on non-work days, shorts. So, shorts is where it's at.
Well, when the snow's not flying, that makes total sense.
Exactly. And here we have basically 2 weeks in the summer that we can enjoy some shorts and maybe sandals. So yeah, at least someone's holding down the fort there in California, man. I appreciate that.
All 40 million of us, we are.
So today we invited Jane on the show for a reason. And we've been talking about some of the things that we've learned. But let's see, what in the world did we write down here? Changing careers is the first thing that comes to mind. So Jane, you recently got a new job. You switched careers. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your lesson. What have you learned over the last couple of years?
Well, so recently, I've been in my new job capacity a little over a year. So I made that change After a long, long career of being on the practitioner, the consumer side of the ITSM industry, I led IT services and support for a large financing institution headquartered right smack in the middle of the United States with national touch, implemented the program, did all that. And through all that, I matured in my knowledge. I matured as a leader. I matured in a lot of ways that I appreciate and am very grateful for the company that I worked for all those years. I always, especially when I got involved in service management and the tie to people and processes, I always fell back to a saying of mine that was threefold. That said, value is the one thing that every employee wants to deliver. Every employee wants to give. Every process should deliver, and what every customer wants for their money. And I was really getting to a point in my career where value was still there, but I wanted to give more. And there were some restraints where we were at where things weren't going to happen as fast as I probably wanted. So there was a little bit of energy that I needed to rechannel, and started thinking about how else I could rechannel that energy, that knowledge, that wisdom. And the more I thought about it, a lot of it I reflected on is what I was getting also out of my HDI experience, a local chapter officer, and being in an officer position, whenever we'd have our monthly events in my chapter locally in Nebraska, we have monthly events. I just really looked forward to the gathering and the networking with people and listening to their successes, their gaps, their problems, and that really kind of spawned me into thinking about getting on the other side of the fence and getting into a consulting role and being able to work with multiple companies instead of just one, and running into that restraint when, for all the right reasons, other priorities going on, things like that. So, but a pretty big leap. I thought about it probably way too long. My husband even told me one morning, just do it. It's a change that you have to make. And I did it, I think, probably because I reflected back on a model of change that was very, very successful for me. I think amazingly successful, that I've seen play out not only in my past work of working in service management and doing culture change and people change and technology change. And it's really based on the influencer model by Joseph Grenny and Carrie Patterson and their colleagues.
Yeah, Jane, I was going to ask you about that model, what that model was.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
Hey, pause every paragraph or so, because we ran into an issue one time where someone talked nonstop for 20 minutes and we were never able to cut it down. So like maybe every minute or two, just pause.
Okie dokie.
Cool.
Yeah, and then
all that was good. That was about 3 or 4 minutes solid. So that was good. And then maybe we could relaunch with Jason asking that question again.
I'm going to ask the question, and we're going to do the magic of digital editing where I'll get your answer after the question. It's pretty amazing how we do it. It totally works out very well. So Jane, we're real big on the show here. We're real big into change here on the show. That's kind of what our mantra. We're focused on professional development, and change is the only constant. So you mentioned the model. You had a change model. And I'm interested in learning more about that.
Yes, it's the influencer model. Joseph Grenny, I always have to think of his name, and Carrie Patterson and a slew of colleagues published a book on this. Oh gosh, I think it's probably about 6-7 years old, and there's a newer edition. But it really is focusing on where are you at today, no matter what that change is, and what is the change that you envision to achieve. So know that first. Where are you at today, and where do you want to be? And then from 3 different levels, from a personal, a social, and a structural level, define on those 3 areas. And it's very important that you do all 3. What are the barriers at the personal level, the social level, the structural level that's going to keep you from getting to that envisioned change that you want? And once you know what those barriers are, then you just simply strategize how to overcome those barriers. Because the reality is, if you don't overcome the barriers, you're never going to achieve that change.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Can you say the name of that author again, please?
It's The Influencer, The Power to Change Anything. And the first 2 authors listed first are Joseph Grenny and Carrie Patterson. There's a slew of other colleagues that are on the author book cover, but those stand out amongst other things that they've authored.
Excellent. We can put that in the show notes. And that reminds me, I think, Jason and Jane, of some other personal strategy techniques. I recently took a day, just a day off, planned it in advance, and did a personal strategy day for my next 2 years, 5 years, and kind of the same types of things, I think, Jane. But I'd like to take a look at that and see what we come up with as well. So it's very important. Kind of all relates into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? With the different things that you need and what are the obstacles and how to remove them.
Yep. Lots of good parallels through both. Personal level, it was really realizing my barrier was the confidence that I could make the change. And that came when I was getting close to making the leap. I had gone to a digital business partner workshop with a university here in Omaha, and had the pleasure of sitting next to a software vendor, not the software vendor that I currently work with, but it was one that I had, as part of a tool deliberation, we had almost invested in. And the only reason we didn't was because we couldn't understand what their culture was. And they were flabbergasted when I gave them the news that we didn't choose them. And fast forward a couple of years, I sat down and I introduced myself, and he knew who I was and reached out of his portfolio and slid a 5x7 card in front of me. And it was a nice promotional card, laminated card of their product. And then he flipped it over, and on the back, there were their core value statement. And they didn't have that before. And so when I had followed up with them to explain why culture and the fabric of your culture is your core values, they took that and learned from that and made sure that the world knew that they had core values so that they could speak the language of the audiences that they were selling to. So that was a huge day. That was a changer for me. That gave me the confidence and the understanding that I could influence, that I could consult. So that was the personal barrier to overcome. The social was all about, I was involved in the HEI. I still am. I continue to try to elevate that involvement, but I got involved with another professional group here in Omaha, just to, in the Heartland, Women in Technology in the Heartland, just to continue to build relationships, get my name out there, learn where there might be opportunities. And then that structural level at the end, it really came down to leaving my job. That was the structure. If I had stayed where I was at, I never would have gotten to where I am today. And that was pretty hard. Like I said, it was the hardest of all the barriers to overcome, because the easy thing would have been to stay and be unhappy. The hard thing is to leave a place that you've been with for so long and trust that you can find happiness there. But the change model, the influencer model, helping with that, once I identified what those barriers were and my strategies to overcome, I was able to get there. So still pinching myself.
So you were at your former job for about 15 years, if I remember correctly.
Oh, want to double that?
No way, 30 years. Okay.
33.
Okay.
Break of service in between.
Okay, because I was actually reading the press release that went out when you won the Officer of the Year for the largest tech support association in the world. And so 15 stuck in my head. That must have been just in that role you were there. I actually want to take what you have here. And Jason, I want to kind of go to a question we had for Jane, which is, okay, so a lot of people are in their mid-career. So we're not necessarily talking about people who are starting out in their late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, but people that are in their 40s and 50s, they're mid-career. What advice out of everything, looking backwards, what advice do you have for people?
Couple pieces of advice is, what makes your heart go pitty-pat when you get out of bed every morning? And if it's not going pitty-pat, then that's probably a sign that there's a change of some sort. So you need to sit down and really just have a talk with yourself. What is it that, again, it gets back to what's going to bring you happiness is knowing that you're providing value, and where those opportunities are where you feel like you can provide value. Relationships are key. That's why I extended my professional extension into another group. I got on the planning board with the local group here in the Women in Technology in the Heartland, and continued to work hard and give as much as I could within the capacity of onboarding new people in my own local chapter of HDI and so forth. But to as my predecessor and great mentor Nick LaRouge always says, give tirelessly. And so it's make sure you stay connected. I have a close acquaintance of mine who's going through a job loss, a job transition, trying to transition the same age as myself. And that's the missing link, is that lack of networking and relationships. And he's feeling it. He's feeling the challenge of finding the right on-ramp.
I love that. Give tirelessly. That also belongs on a hat. We have a thing where we like to put slogans like that on a hat so people can. Some people do T-shirts. We're kind of into hats over here. At least I am. Brandon doesn't wear hats.
My hat is metaphysical. My hat is metaphysical. I just want to interject. I actually am part of a group down here in Orange County, and I got added to their chat. It's I guess you call it like a group that works on changing things here, making it for the better. And they tagged me in this chat online as the hair.
The hair.
The hair.
That's pretty good.
I just said, okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Just say thank you and move on.
Metaphysical hat. So it sounds like part of the advice, Jane, that you would give people who are mid-career is to become uncomfortable, to embrace if things seem just like repetitive and complacent, maybe become uncomfortable, look for what else you can do. It sounds like you kind of went down that journey.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's not like you wake up one day and just know what it is. It's that talk with yourself, is what is it that what's the value that I know I can give? It's probably going to be based on your experience, your knowledge, where you've made a difference, and finding channels and relationships, whether it's through professional organizations or other types of connections to keep the conversation going. I had several morning coffees in my when I left my job, and I knew what I was targeting. I knew I wanted to get on the software consulting side, so I knew I had a couple of companies I was targeting. But with that, you don't take any of it for granted. You still have to have a plan B. So plan B was to stay on the practitioner side, the consumer side. But I worked the hardest at, through LinkedIn, through your electronic digital connections that you have out there, to just keep reaching out, utilizing, HDI. And I have to say, HDI had a heck of a lot, the relationships that I have there, to do with where I landed, as well as my girls' golf league. Those two things I pretty much sure landed me in my job. Mm-hmm. Because in the interview, even though I had to come in and give a presentation, which you're nervous about, I knew they were really just checking to see if the chemistry was there, if I was someone they could have a beer with, if I was someone that they could sit down and from a person-to-person level understand people. And when the gentleman in the room says, "What do you do for fun?" and I say, "I play golf on Wednesday nights," and two of them lean forward very seriously and say, "What's your handicap?" I probably wouldn't have done this when I was 25 or 30, but I can, I guess, through wisdom and experience and being comfortable through going through, again, my formula of the influencer model and knowing what I worked through. I leaned back and smiled and said, "It's not about the golf." And they very seriously leaned even further and said, "It's not."
Because they're into it.
No, it's about the beer and the good conversation, mostly the great conversation. And that's the first time I was ever on an interview that just honestly felt like a party. It was cool.
So you knew you were in the right spot.
What's that?
That's how you knew that you were in the right spot.
Yeah, I think so. It was a company I targeted because culture is important. I influenced a competitor to come up with enough to know enough about culture and what was important in terms of core values. That I certainly was looking for that in a company too. So know your core values. If that's not in alignment, then
so
black tunnel.
Jane, talking a lot about.
Just 1 second, guys.
Yep.
So we only have a few minutes left in this. So up to here has been phenomenal. So we have to take a decision here. How long do we want to do our next segment, Jason? Because then we have to wrap.
Yeah, it'll be like 3-4 minutes on the key story. We have some material from before that I'll listen to again and see how it all comes together. But I wanted to talk. I'll say a transition, and then we'll get into the key story, and then for one more.
I'm gonna give you these, Jane, to start winding up. Okay.
Okie dokie.
I don't know if you can see him or not.
Brandon's our official timekeeper. He keeps us on track.
I always need a timekeeper.
So do I. It's kind
So when I go, hey, is this thing on?
No, Brandon's good.
No, it's good because that way we can make it. So just pause a little bit every once in a while in case we need to snip.
It's like a haircut. Don't touch the hair.
Seriously, man, I have that problem all the time. No, long on top, short on the back.
Yeah, they
Not the mullet.
that's why I'm wearing a hat.
All right, Jason, you want to restart us here?
Yeah, so let's see. I was going to say, Jane, we're talking about professional development. We're talking about change, and we're talking about stepping out of your comfort zone. That reminds me of a story where one of the first times that I really got to know you on a deeper level, a couple of years ago at our Leadership Development Summit in Colorado, I asked you to present the Key to Our Success Award, and I was blown away. I think there was not a dry eye in the entire room, but I was blown away by what you delivered. Could we talk a little bit about your process on developing that speech and the story that you told, and how did you view that challenge?
Well, the challenge was to deliver a speech in a short amount of time on the award being the key to our success. And the good news is I've been a recipient of the person that we are honoring, of the help that that person's given to me. So it was very intrinsic to me, making sure that there was a solid story, very heartfelt. But I like to have a little fun. I like to tell stories. And so I thought, well, it's a key. It's a key to our success. And I'm thinking of key stories. The one that popped into my mind is the infamous Benjamin Franklin tied the key to a kite, went out into the electrical storm and changed the world. And the more I thought of that, that's what Carrie did, or Carrie does, is there's, among 460 some plus officers across the United States that we all of us lean on her for, and she guides us on. There's a lot of organized chaos. There's also a lot of energy. And she has to help us channel that and be focused and most appropriate award. So I correlated the storm that Benjamin Franklin went out to in his experiment, read up on his experience. And coincidentally, it was a couple centuries before the June date of that award was also the day that he did this. It was just like, yay! Because I was Googling like crazy trying to write this speech, and a lot of great parallels. So once I read and I saw what he went through and what he connected and what he was trying to solve, it really was an easy parallel to draw. It was just a matter of delivering it and making sure that it was my heart talking. And that was not hard to do at all because she was so well deserving.
You did it very well. And I feel like I got to know you better that day. And you kind of set the stage for what we did next. Is you had the idea of giving everyone in the room a little key. Or was it between you and Jenny? We had the idea of giving everyone in the room a key, and they wrote like a little 2-word, they wrote their name on it and a thank you. And everyone got up and hand delivered it to Carrie. That was really moving.
It was.
You set the stage for that.
There was much crying going on there.
It was an emotional experience. So thank you for that. Mission accomplished is right. So Brandon, do we have time for one more thing? And now you're on mute because of the beeping.
Ah, crap. Say it again, man.
Hey, Brandon, do we have time for one more thing?
We do have time for one more thing. What do you got for me, Jason?
This week, I had the pleasure to go see that new movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. And I'll have to admit, I was a little out-nerded in the theater. I am a nerd, disclaimer, but I was surrounded by people that maybe they saw the first one, maybe they really understood the story. Have you seen that movie or have you heard about it?
Yeah, I have. I saw it in French, Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2.
You saw the French version. Very good.
No, I have seen 1 and 2. I want to hear your thoughts on it first, though.
I thought it was well done. I recommend the movie. It's a yes for me. But I didn't really, I thought it was, I'll say it this way. I didn't really connect with the the branding of the story and the characters, because I wasn't aware, except for Baby Groot. Everyone was like, "Oh, he's so cute." You know, he says, "I am Groot" over and over. Jane, did you hear that? Did you see the movie?
I did not. My husband went and saw it while I was at the HDI conference
Did
last
he
week.
tell you about it? What he thought?
Yeah, he and the neighbors went. They said it was great. I haven't given him a brain dissection of it yet.
Yeah.
I haven't had time, but I'm sorry I missed it. Sounds like it was real well done.
It was
Oh, it was
okay. I
fun.
mean, I like part one better.
I did see part one.
I don't know what that song was.
Oh, that's like the main song, Fox on the
That's
Run. It's
See, that's the thing. I don't get it. Like I'm not a true fan. Kind of like my hat here. I don't really get it. Oh,
well, the band is called Sweet. They also sing Ballroom Blitz, late '70s, early '80s. I'll send you some links. You know them. You know them.
Please
You just
do.
don't. You're like, oh, that song.
Yes, that's exactly what'll happen. So I thought the movie was good. I'd recommend give it a thumbs up, even if you're not a true fan. But I think for the true fans, you're gonna like it even more.
Okay, next time we talk, I'm gonna tell you about Arthur, the movie that's out right now,
Mhm.
and how to separate historical legend from historical fiction. Just think on that for a while.
That could be like a bonus episode. That's pretty good. We could probably talk for about an hour on that topic, and I think we should. Maybe.
Definitely. Well, hey, we got to wrap it up. So,
Time to wrap this up.
Jane, thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for the honor of getting to participate.
It goes so quickly, like we mentioned, and it certainly did.
Well, I
I'll
guess
leave
it's
you with
good. We
one
can say
theme.
goodbye now.
What's that, Jane?
So, 2 words. Part of the whole change thing.
Mhm.
Bloom where you're planted, but also bloom where you're transplanted.
I like bloom where you're planted and bloom where you're transplanted.
Yep.
I got to point out that's actually 9 words.
A couple-ish, 9-ish. No.
Brandon's
You
in
always
charge of
have
all
to
this
draw
stuff.
pictures. What's your favorite license plate? What would it say? I'd always say bloom. And then when I started thinking about that, it's like, well, bloom where you're planted, but bloom where you're transplanted also.
Fitting words for this conversation. Thank you so much.
I like that.
Until next time.
Until
Very
next
good. Jane, thanks for being on the show. Brandon, great to see you. Enjoy the terrible Southern California weather. I don't know how you're going to do it, but
It's brutal, but someone's got to go out there into the sun.
into the sun. All right. See you next time, man. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
See ya.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
That was our
Pretty cool. So we're
official
wrapped.
goodbye. We're wrapped. So